Hey everybody, it's Eric Caden in the garden today. Wanted to do another update. It's only May 9th and we did a tour back on the 5th, but it's amazing how much has changed. This Gemini is in full bloom. You can see why it gets one of the best ratings in terms of exhibition roses. It's usually in the top 3 and it's above an 8 on the ARS garden rating. And what that means is anything above an 8 is a pretty good rose in the garden. Are you gonna have to do some spraying? Yes. Are you still gonna have some disease issues? Sure. But I mean, you cannot beat those blooms. One thing I wanna mention, some of these roses that are farther along, you can start to do your deadheading. And I don't think I did a good job with the last live stream. I really emphasized going down to the first set of 5 leaves and getting kind of picky with it. In reality, you can do that, and if you go to the first set of 5 leaves, you usually have a pretty active bud eye that's ready to pop out. But as we head into the summertime, once anything looks like this, again, obviously old, not looking that pretty, I just tend to cut it off right at the top. So I'll just snip this one off from a distance so you can see. But I don't even worry about what leaflet. I just cut it off at the top, so I'm preserving as many of the leaves as possible, because once we get into the summer months, you're going to have heat, maybe some water issues, so you don't want to lose a lot of those leaves. So you can see that I barely took off any of the stem there. And I usually like having some type of container to put those in, because I'll throw those away because they may have some disease or certainly insects with them. I don't want to compost those. So a couple more roses I'll show you. This is Hot Princess. Again, an outstanding rose. It's a florist variety, and what I mean by that is it's from the florist trade, and you can see why. Look at these long canes, huge leaves, single blooms. Usually has a center, and it usually has a really good vase life. One of my favorite reds is Veteran's Honor. It doesn't have a scent, but outside of that, it has a very vigorous growth habit. And look at this bloom. Usually has a center and a lot of substance in these petals. They can get wet. We've had rain. This is uncovered, unprotected, and it looks like that. I mean, just amazing. So you want a good quality red, I would definitely recommend Veteran's Honor. And again, for the fact that it doesn't get messed up in the rain, holds its form, just outstanding. This is a newer variety, not super new, but really nice. This is Sunny Sundays. Crescendo has had some issues with some thrips. I kind of stopped worrying about it. You can see some water spots on the petals. For rose shows, we would cover this up, but almost every single one has that pinpoint form in the middle. I mean, just every one has that pinpoint shape, so just a beautiful one. This is Jewel Grace. Had I covered this up, this could be queen potential. You can see the water spots there, but look at the form in the middle. That's Jewel Grace. Marlin's Day is doing well. It's having a little bit of trouble opening because we've been kind of cool. Cool here in the Carolinas is highs in the low 60s. So I know people up north are dealing with actual snow. Going back to the deadheading, this is a firm. These blooms are well past peak. You can see they're getting some botrytis on it, this disease right there. That could spread to the rest of the garden. So one reason to deadhead is to encourage the next round of blooms. That will speed it up. The other reason is you're getting rid of disease and insects that are in the garden. And these tend to just kind of ball up sometimes. So they're ready. Once they're not looking that good, here's a Crystalline. Once it's not looking good in the garden, you may as well get rid of them. I posted some pictures on this. This is a nice one. This is Louise Estes, and I paused for a second because I was taken aback. This is Signature. We're going to do a video on this here coming up. You can see that there's a little bit of different growth here. That's a sucker of Fortuniana. But wow, I'm really impressed. I'll have to look to see where this is coming from. This is a new basil or low break on the Signature. Look how thick that is. That's outstanding. I'm excited about that. That means that rose is rocking and rolling. We'll come over here, show you what I mean about the difference between Veteran's Honor and some other roses. This is Mr. Caleb. Really nice red rose, but I've noticed this year it does not like to get wet. I mean, huge blooms. Look at that form. I mean, that's a very pretty rose, but you can see on the edges, it gets messed up a little bit in the in the wetness of a rain. So you're going to want to cover that bloom for exhibition purposes. But huge bloom. It does often has form. My growth habit has been good. Long stem roses and looking quite good. But again, it gets pretty messed up in any type of rain. You can see some of that discoloration there. Contrast that with a Veteran's Honor, and it's much more susceptible to some damage. Another one that does well and it weathers okay is Let Freedom Ring. Again, these are all uncovered. And this is a newer one. My wife really likes this one. This is a nice coloring. It's not going to show up as well in this sunshine, but this is Claire Elise, another John Smith rose. This is hybridized, same hybridizer that did Randy Scott and the Sunny Sundays I just showed you. So all in all, things are looking pretty good. The main point of this update was to show you some of the blooms that are getting toward past peak, like this huge Dolly Parton. So we're kind of getting there. The headliner was looking pretty good, and now it's seen its better days. We mentioned that a couple good reasons for taking these roses out and deadheading. It'll get the next cycle going. You can already see some new growth on the rose bush, so the rose can focus on new energy for the next cycle of blooms. You'll prevent pests and diseases from carrying on. And it's good to get it before these petals fall off. Once they fall on the ground like this, they're really hard to pick up. This is from Yolanda de Aragon. I mentioned one of my favorite roses is Alina. Had some thrip problems, and you can see the damage there. But in terms of growth and amount of blooms, you just can't beat that. That's a huge rose right there. So we'll end with something to talk about cold weather. I know a lot of folks are dealing with cold weather. We're going to be in the upper 30s here. We may actually have frost. When your roses are like this, there's just nothing you can do. A little frost isn't going to hurt them. It may zap some of the blooms. But I want to focus on what you can do. No matter where you live, if you have any potted roses, especially if you don't have a lot of them, these are my maidens, Cajun Moon and Maverick from Steve Singer. I'm most certainly going to bring those in. Any of my potted annuals, things like impatiens, geraniums, stuff like that, I'm most certainly going to bring those in. So try to focus on what you can control. Some of us are just going to have to bear and grin it, and hopefully we don't have a lot of damage. But if your roses are really far along, or let's say they're at the other end, they haven't really broken dormancy a lot, they're pretty hardy. You might suffer some dieback and some damage, but a rose is pretty hardy. I know we don't like temperatures in the 20s this late into May, and I certainly feel for those growers up north that are having to deal with this. But my advice to you, bring the plants in when you can. If you've got some potted up plants, bring them in. If you can't, one thing I did up north, this is a Randy Scott that kind of caught my attention, is if they were low to the ground, these are way too big. But up north we pruned so hard because the winters were so severe. Sometimes I only had 4 to 6 inches of cane sticking out of the ground. You can turn a pot upside down, empty bucket, put a rock on top, a light blanket, so you can do some light covering if your plants are small. Otherwise, you're just going to have to kind of go with what's going on with the damage. I'll last leave you with this one. This is Sport of Let Freedom Ring. Very, very nice one, but you can tell from the video, it's got an orange coloring as opposed to reds. And it's interesting, Zach Noble's on the left, Let Freedom on the Ring on the right. Always seems like the sports are just a little shorter than the originals. Hope everybody's doing well, and some good news down the road once we get by this cold snap. It does look very warm as we head into next weekend, so perhaps here the weekend after Mother's Day will officially start summer for a lot of us. Have a great day, everybody.